Yeah, let's get started. So yeah, the purpose of this little Discord Q&A is, we've been a little silent, busy with SLX production, um, but that's about to change very quickly here. There's about to be a lot more SLX coming at everybody's way here, from all different angles. And before we start, releasing a lot of the content and reviewers getting it, all this stuff, and people trying to see, what is TMR-DS? How does the system work? Even our own content videos may be a little bit hard to understand. So the purpose of this Colosseum today is, even if just 75 people here understand the system a little better, that's a good little ramp and ramp up into more people understanding it correctly instead of people just speculating. So yeah, let's kind of dive in. It's there's a lot to it. We usually don't share this much of the intricacies of some of the tech like this, and our internal systems and kind of like internal software applications, but luckily we have some pretty good patents on the TMR-DS system, so I'm pretty much free to talk about it as much as I want. So you guys are going to be able to see kind of all the little details. Dang, we're still getting more people. Okay. Nope, don't need to sign an NDA for this lecture. So cool. Let's kind of dive in. I wish I had a picture of here. Who has a picture from our original video that had kind of like the TMR magnets and little sensor or whatever? Somebody toss that in the chat. Can we put pictures in chat? Actually, you know what I'll do? Yeah, I'm just gonna go to YouTube. Get this. All right, just give me one moment, guys. Just want to have a little slide while I'm talking so people know what's going on. Okay. All right, we got it up. Now I'm going to share my screen. Sharing screen. Where do we do that? Share screen. Okay. You guys see my screen? I should be on the Starlight video. Cool. You guys see the slide? You guys see the magnet? Everybody seeing that? Yes? Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So it's loading. You guys don't see it? Do you actually see the video slide or no? Oh, whenever I click on Discord, it will disappear? Oh no, you guys see the video? Okay. Well, Mizu's in here. If something isn't right and if something's not up on the screen, just let me know while I'm talking, because I can't keep bouncing between Discord. But anyways, TMR-DS. Let's start, mechanically with the parts. What's happening? It's pretty simple. I'm sure some of you guys are going to tear down the mouse, and you're going to see, the most minimal kind of sleeve under the clicker, very close to where the plunger is that actually hits the magnetic switch. Here, let me just take a picture. I luckily have one right here next to me, so I can take a picture here on my phone. And upload it. Let's see if I can upload at the same time. I just put it in general chat because I feel like if I join the Colosseum on my phone, it's going to disconnect me. So I just put a picture in general chat as well, so you can see how small it is in person. This picture, it looks like there's a giant magnet, but in reality, this magnet weighs about 0.1 grams, 0.15 grams each, something like that. Very small. The south side of the magnet is facing down towards the PCB, towards the TMR sensor. And the TMR sensor is only about, I think, 2 millimeters, maybe a little less, away from the face of the magnet at rest. And this is very important because how well an analog system performs has a lot to do with the physics that you're dealing with. So, just as an example, keyboards. You have the switch, the magnet's in there, and in analog keyboards, it's very, very important that that stack-up height is as minimal as possible, because the further the distance between the magnet and the sensor, obviously, you're going to need more powerful magnets, more sensitive sensors, noise increases, sensitivity goes down. You're basically battling physics the further these two are away from each other. There's a common misconception that you want more powerful sensors, the most powerful analog sensor or the most powerful magnet. That's actually not how analog systems work. It's actually a delicate balance of flux simulations and magnetic simulations where you're trying to get this really sweet spot with the right combination of magnet strength, sensor sensitivity, and a part of this equation is the distance between the two. And generally, the closer the magnet and the sensor is, the better of an environment you're going to get to manipulate this equation to get the best performance and the lowest noise and the highest precision and all of that. So the cool thing about this setup, contrary to what some others have said, is we literally have the best setup for an analog system of any peripheral ever made, right? And here's why. Because keyboards, they're constrained. Even like, the best whatever keyboard, like you have the switch, you have to have the plate, you have the PCB sensor. The stack-up height is a little bit higher. I think stack-up height in analog keyboard is like 4 or 5, 6 millimeters, something like that. You just mechanically can't get that close. We're at less than 2 millimeters. We're right up there. If you press the switch click down, the face of that magnet is basically right up against the sensor. Yeah, keyboard switch travel is normally 4 millimeters by itself. I'm not talking about the travel, I'm talking about the stack up height, the distance between the magnet in the switch and the sensor on the PCB. So there's things in the keyboard like a plate, the switch housing, and all of that that kind of add up to that. With force, could we damage the sensor? No, it's designed, you can't reach the sensor, but you'll be close. You're basically getting closer than less than a millimeter. So you're getting very close. You're getting as close as possible without ever being able to hit the sensor. So I say all this because this system mechanically, in terms of the physics, is basically set up to create the best environment for an analog architecture out of any peripheral device ever made. One, we're using TMR sensors, which are the best technology in terms of analog sensing. Especially a lot of the newer TMR sensors. There's a lot of TMR sensor manufacturers popping up left and right in Asia, and a lot of their specs are just significantly better than their Hall effect equivalents, especially when it comes to power efficiency. And in a wireless mouse, power efficiency is a huge spec. So got to use the TMR sensor. And then on top of that, we have the perfectly sized magnet at a really good distance. So all this kind of means you have an environment where you're kind of set up for success. And that goes back to somebody's question earlier. Can you, if you had a metal desk, if you have a magnet, this and that, can it affect the performance? In this mouse, no, because the sensor sensitivity and the magnet, they're not huge, right? So they're kind of working in their own little bubble. If you bring in magnets or things or a metal desk, it's not going to affect it because they're operating in such kind of low noise conditions. So that's kind of like the physics and the mechanics. Did G-Wills copy our tech? No, nobody's copied our tech. Nobody's done this. And this is, we also have this kind of dual system patented, pretty strong actually. I think it's our strongest patent. So it's going to be a tough challenge. Of course, the Asian manufacturers will do it, but not easily, because they could put a TMR sensor in it and copy the mechanicals. But as we're about to get into it now, a lot of what makes it great is all the kind of the code and the algorithms and all the flux simulations and kind of all these kind of like firmware things that go into making it work well. So that's the mechanicals of what you see in there. The magnet is also kind of glued in too. We put a little dab before it goes into the sleeve, so it never comes out after we just wanted to make sure even if 50 million clicks happen, that magnet isn't coming out. Because even if it came out a little bit, you see it's kind of not perfectly flush with the end of the sleeve. If that magnet moves even just a tad bit, that's affecting your performance. So it's rock solid in there. After calibration is done, it should never move. We do some dynamic calibration and things like that to ensure even if there is any sort of mild drift, you're always getting the same performance. So that's the magnet. That's the Hall sensor. Pretty simple. It's glued in. It's not coming out. It's not affected by other things. And it's right next to the switch. So let's talk about what happens at the factory before you guys get the mouse, because there's some important things that go on there as well. Because I just mentioned calibration. I don't know if anybody really knows too much about how analog devices are calibrated, but it's pretty simple. Like the firmware has to be able to kind of read these voltages, because analog is all voltage, right? You're reading the voltage from the sensor to see how close that magnet is. And during calibration, you're kind of giving the mouse these ranges of, okay, where is it depressed, where is it pressed, and you're calibrating out that range for it. It's a lot more complicated than that, but at a high level, you're calibrating the range and the distance and all of that when you do factory calibration, so that the mouse knows, oh, okay, I'm not pressed, or now I'm 0.1 pressed, or I'm 0.2 pressed. And here's the beauty the first beauty, there's many beauties that you're about to learn about with the TMR-DS system and why it's so great. The first kind of game changer actually happens at the factory. I'm sure everybody here knows about how mechanical switches can, differ and vary and feel, right? I'm sure somebody, you've gotten a switch. I don't know how many people here have just gotten switches by themselves, like to mod or whatever, but these switch manufacturers aren't perfect, right? You get two of the same switch and one is just, maybe a tiny bit different in feel, right? And, they work hard to filter these, but even then it's not perfect. And it's our job, the manufacturer's job as well, to do even further quality control and testing and filtering in our processes to try and get these switches to feel perfect. But they never are. Even, like great mechanical switches, not, ones that aren't even optical or whatever, even great mechanical switches that have very tight process controls, there's one that kind of maybe sneaks in there that feels a little different or whatnot. And one of the big factors that impact the feel of a switch, and let's see if I can find a switch in here. Is there a switch somewhere in here in this video? No, I mean, this is good enough for now. But a big thing that impacts the feel of a switch is the pre-travel of a switch, right? So Quano, when they're binning and speccing switches for us, we ask for the tightest spec. So they're supposed to be giving us switches with a pre-travel in the range of, I believe it's 0.25 and like 0.35 millimeters. So that's the spec that they kind of try and guarantee. And even then, they're not always successful. Right? I mean, you're relying on their processes. The world isn't perfect. But that's what they try and give us, is switches between 0.25 and 0.35 millimeters of pre-travel in the switch. And they have a bunch of big equipment and stuff to measure this. But when we get it, when it's soldered on, some solder heat's applied, all these different things, I mean, the switch is not always there. And if a switch has a little more pre-travel or a little less pre-travel, it's going to feel different than another switch. It's one of the main things actually that tell you if a switch is feeling different than another one. A switch that has 0.25 millimeters of pre-travel versus one that has 0.4 millimeters of pre-travel, when you put it in a mouse, it's going to feel ever so slightly different. And this all comes down to literally this little metal leaf in this switch is just so subtly different, right? Like, it just, the way these metal leaves are stamped at another stamping factory and sent to the switch, supplier, like, it's going to have tiny bits of nuance. Maybe the temperature that day was a little hotter, right? The stamped metal came out a little different. It was a little humid. It rained the previous day. Who knows, right? All these little tolerances build and stack up onto each other. So it's never going to be perfect until now. So how do we do that? Well, how does the TMR help us with the mechanical switch? These are two totally different things. I'll tell you. Here's the first clever idea or thing that's happening in TMR-DS. So when we calibrate in our calibration software, not only are we getting the range of the click in terms of voltage, but in the firmware, we can also read the digital signal. That's the mechanical switch itself. We read the point that it digitally actuates, the point the metal leaf snaps, and we can then find where that is along the analog range. So that means whenever we calibrate now at our factory, we can see that a mechanical switch on the left click maybe has 0.21 millimeters of pre-travel, right? And the left click or the other click has 0.23. We literally can see the differences in micrometers between the mechanical digital switch point. And you may be saying, I don't know what you're saying, or I don't know what he's talking about. I'm going to show you. Let me change my screen now. to our internal, this is our internal kind of like testing X panel. It shows way more information than what you guys are going to see, but I'm going to show it to you. You'll never see this outside of this presentation. Okay. Do you guys see the new window? Do you guys see that? Okay. So there's a lot of crazy shit you guys are seeing. This is kind of like what's happening behind the scenes with TMR-DS. You see, you switching between digital analog. These are the live kind of things that you can see. I'm gently putting my finger on the left button, gently putting my finger on the right button. And it's measuring this in micrometers. I've already calibrated this specific mouse that I'm using. What you're seeing here at the bottom is just general noise in the environment and literally the wind, right? Like we kind of use hysteresis to get some of that out, but you're seeing the raw voltage at the low values. And here's what I was talking about. We can read where on this voltage range the digital signal happens. That's this number here. We call it the MSP, mechanical switch point. Mechanical switch point here, left and right button. So what is this saying? This saying that in this mouse, this assembled mouse, right, fully assembled with clicks, with the bottom screws in, with all these different factors going on, my left button has a mechanical pre-travel. That means the leaf, we literally can detect when the leaf is going off. It goes off at 421 micrometers. That's that purple line right here. I don't even know if you can hear my mouse, but it literally clicks right there, 421 micrometers. And this is accurate to, the 0.01, right? That's what that is, 0.01 millimeter accuracy. Right click is saying it's actuating at 456 micrometers. So what does that mean? It means they're pretty close, but my left switch has slightly less pre-travel, about 30 or 40 micrometers. That's 0.03 or 0.04 less pre-travel than my right click. Why does that matter? Why is that so game changing? Because now this TMR-DS system allows us not just to give you all this epic latency improvements that we're going to go into, but it also gives us the ability to give you the best feeling switches ever and consistency on these switches that are unprecedented, because now we don't have to rely on Huano or anybody else. We literally see right at factory calibration, boom, these switches are perfect. They're right in line. They're within 20 micrometers of each other, right? They're exactly within the range. And this distance actually tells you a lot. It tells you how snappy it is, because a switch with too much pre-travel, it's generally mushy, right? A switch with too little, it generally doesn't have the right snap. It doesn't have the right force. We actually find we don't even have to measure the force values of the switch anymore with this, because just the pre-travel tension in the leaf tells us everything we need to know. We have so much data that we can kind of just know, looking at only these two numbers, how good that switch is feeling, how much pop it has, how snappy it is. So even before you're getting the mouse and you're turning on TMR-DS, you're already getting benefits in your mechanical switch. You're getting better feeling mechanical switches than you're ever going to get anywhere else, because of how we're able to filter and bin and spec our mechanical switches. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Everybody get mechanical switch point? Cool. Okay, so let's go back to this page. So we have our mechanical switch point. My left click is 40 micrometers less. If this was Mizu, he'd RMA his mouse. He'd be like, oh my God, my thing is 40 micrometers. Well, guess what? You guys aren't going to see this for that very reason, because I don't need any of these schizos out in the world RMAing their mice for being 10 micrometers less pre-travel on their left and right click. All right? So it's all hidden. You'll never see it except for today. You have to sign a schizo contractual agreement before we can disclose such information. So that's what the mechanical switch point is. You see it's 40 micrometers less. You got a great feeling switch in the mouse. Already giant positive from anything that's going to come out. I mean, just think about it. Do you think an induction system like the Super Strike could ever give you the feeling of this? It never will. Never. There's no engineering that can be done with haptics, even if you add 50 grams to the mouse, that's going to give you that raw mechanical switch feeling, that snappy tactile feel of a great switch. Never will happen. You could add 80 grams to the mouse. And luckily here, you don't have to add 80 grams out of the mouse. You're adding 0.2 grams to the mouse. So, you know, it's win-win already. So you have this great feeling switch. It's feeling good. Now you want to turn on analog TMR. What are you going to see? What are you seeing in X panel? Let me show you guys. Let me get a screenshot of that so I can stay on this while I'm showing you. Where is the TMR page? This is the, oh, okay, here we go. I'll put this in general chat too, so you guys can see it. Maybe somebody can share it in the Colosseum chat, because I'm trying to put it from my phone and I can't switch. Okay, I just sent a little screenshot of what you guys are going to see in X panel. Pretty simple. I think there's one extra thing that we have in our current version that's not here, but yeah, for the most part, that's what you're saying. Two sides, left click, right click, you can switch from mechanical to TMR, and you can choose the actuation point. And you see that there are three kind of ranges, right? There's green, yellow, red. What does that mean? And you have a little blue star somewhere. So blue star, that's the recommended point. And I'm about to tell you guys why that's so important. And then green is just, you know, safe ranges. And by safe, I'll kind of get into what I mean by that. Safe means it's like not so sensitive that, you know, you're going to literally misclick. You know, that's at a high level, that's what that means. Yellow means, okay, you're starting to get really fast and sensitive now. You know, don't manhandle the mouse too much if you're at those. And then red is basically like, you got to be a psychopath to be using anything in the red range, right? You know, like it's the equivalent of anybody's used the Logitech Super Strike, you know, if you're using the very first setting. I mean, this is even more sensitive than that. So if you're using the very first setting, you're a genuine psycho, and like, you know, you like just blowing air on your click to get it to actuate, or you want to do benchmarking or whatever. That's why that's red, because nobody should be putting it there, but we put it there because obviously people are going to want to play with it. And it's a pretty crazy feeling, you know, like you have your fingers lifted and you put it on the most sensitive and you click in a game, it literally feels like, you know, mind reading, right? But, you know, there's a spectrum of this. And you feel it up to a certain point. And at a certain point, you don't, right? It's not rocket science. You know, the closer you get to the mechanical switch point, the harder or the less benefits you're going to get from the TMR system. And the same thing happens with, you know, competitors' induction, Logitech's induction system, whatever. You go too far, you ruin the point. And we actually don't let you ruin the point of it here. So if you look at the picture, if you're on mechanical, that mechanical switch point is that lowest setting. It's that 0.4. Now, obviously, what I just showed you internally is that mechanical switch point is always changing, right? But we dynamically move that to that max setting. Does that make sense? So on your front, on what you see as a user, that max setting is always that slightly shifting and varying mechanical switch point. So the whole slider and X panel that you're gonna see is technically dynamic. There's a lot happening behind the scenes. So we're not really giving you like true values. We're giving you almost like, kind of like, putting up guardrails on it in a way, right? You're getting kind of like the elementary version of it. But behind the scenes, a bunch of shit is happening so that the mechanical switch point is that lowest level. It's relative to exactly what's on your exact mouse. So you can never go past that. And that sweet spot, that blue star, is also dynamic. So if I give Mizu a mouse, and I give somebody else a mouse, and I give myself a mouse, my blue star, my recommended place for TMR-DS is not the same as Mizu's, right? Because it's all depending on your mouse and your calibration. So what is that recommended? Who decided that recommended? Well, long story short is I kind of decided it. But that doesn't matter. I mean, it's just the blue star. You don't have to follow the blue star, but a lot of testing went into finding that blue star is generally about 200 micrometers, I want to say, before it doesn't. It's not a linear kind of dynamic change. It shifts. So I don't know the exact amount less, but it's roughly that much less than a mechanical switch point. You get good benefits from latency, but it's not so sensitive that your finger is gonna, click it accidentally, generally speaking, at this recommended point. Obviously, somebody's gonna have a super fat finger, right? And like their finger just weighs more than another person's finger, or they grip a mouse differently than another person. So there's always going to be, hey, I can shift it up a little, I can shift it down. But for the most part, for like 90% of people, you don't have to overthink it. You just go in and you just switch it on a TMR-DS and you leave it on that recommended little blue star area, that sweet spot. And it's going to be working perfectly for you there. When you start shifting it, things are going to change. So, you can change it all the way to super low. It's going to feel crazy. You'll definitely feel, I mean, it'll feel literally like you have what's like Elon Musk's like chip implant company. He puts chips in your brain. What is that called? I don't even remember. Neuralink. When you have it on the first setting, it literally feels like Neuralink because it's that much earlier. Like your brain is committing, it's sensing it before you're like, holy shit, how did the game even realize I wanted to click, right? And as you continue to go down to the mechanical switch point, that crazy feeling obviously decreases. The latency benefits, maybe you get like a 20 ms latency benefit on a kind of normal click, and then it'll go down, down, down. But even a 5 ms latency benefit is beneficial, right? Like 3 ms is beneficial if you're talking about the fact that like out here people are competing for like, microseconds nowadays, like in 2026, even a millisecond or two is pretty huge. So, even if you go all the way down, you're on that last setting, you're still getting a little benefit, but it changes. So that's what the recommended spot is. And you're going to get, that great feeling, that benefit. And and like, what is it going to do for you if you're kind of like right at that blue star, right? it depends on how fast your finger presses on the click, but maybe, like I said, you save 5 milliseconds of input latency. Other benefits too is you don't rely on the mechanical switch, which, the only benefit really there is, I guess over time, a mechanical switch is going to feel different after, 1 million clicks or 2 million clicks or, whatever amount of clicks. The analog sensor, that voltage, that spot, it's always going to be dialed in. The mechanicals of the mouse are never going to change. Any drift that ensues is going to be caught by dynamic calibration. Dynamic calibration is calibration that your mouse does over its lifetime. So, that's kind of what TMR-DS at the blue sweet spot does in terms of input latency. It gives you a nice mild benefit that you can kind of feel without being overly sensitive. It's not the craziest thing. It's a good performance benefit. It's a small competitive advantage. And it's also helping in making sure your mechanical switches feel better due to the calibration processes that we have in place too. So you might be thinking, okay, cool, TMR-DS, that's it, right? It's pretty straightforward. Think again. Now we jump into now we're jumping into the fun. Now we're actually going to jump into the game-changing stuff that nobody even knows about. We didn't even release this in the original marketing materials. So there's more things that are happening than just the initial click, right? When you think about click logic, what's happening in a click? It's more than just that initial click. It's the release, right? It's the press, it's the re-release, it's the repress. What do you do in a game? You don't just click once, right? You click multiple times. You're one tapping. You're going bop, 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 right? You're going bop, 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 right? In a mechanical system, that's governed by literally the physics of the mechanical elements, the metal leaf, how snappy is your click material, right? Like the material of the click, the hinge, how the hinge is designed, the geometry of that. All of that determines how fast the click can rebound, right? And how fast you can go back down. You're no longer bound by just the physics. Now, SLX has great geometry in it. It gives you already very snappy clicks. Like with our carbon fiber hinges, they're very snappy, very clicky. I showed a video earlier. But now, with TMR-DS, you're upping that to a level that is giving a true competitive advantage. So the competitive advantage you're about to see on the actual represses and down travel, up travel, this is the thing that's game changing. And kind of to the point that I was a little worried we might get banned in certain games, but hopefully not. What we have happening behind the scenes, and we're not going to be kind of showcasing it everywhere too much, is a smart rapid trigger system, right? So this is not your everyday, everyman's rapid trigger that you have on your. You guys hear me now? What's going on? Hello? Holy shit, guys.
Yeah, you're here.
This is some conspiracy level stuff happening. I literally got disconnected from my own stage, couldn't join back in. I don't know what's happening. Okay, let's get people back in. All right, we're back. We're back. Let's get everyone back. We lost like half our people. Just at the most critical time. I was about to divulge the the most game-changing aspect of TMR-DS. How could they do that to me? I don't even know how to get everybody. I don't know how we would message everybody back to get back in. I guess people will just kind of come back in on their own. Okay. So what was I saying? I got cut off. Now my thought process is all derailed. But the most game-changing thing that's happening is it's not the normal rapid trigger. It's smart rapid trigger. So let me once again share my screen. Okay. You guys see my screen again? All right, we got most people back. Anyways, what I was saying before I got cut off, disconnected, is the biggest benefit is in something we haven't even talked about. It's happening behind the scenes in this thing called Smart Rapid Trigger. It's a system that's always enabled. You can't turn it off. You can't change anything about it. You're always going to have Smart Rapid Trigger on. And here's what it does, and here's why it's so crazy. And I think it's one of the biggest competitive advantages since like a mouse becoming lighter. Maybe even more so, because it really does break some kind of games, like in terms of how fast you can do stuff. So the genius of Smart Rapid Trigger, and I'll let's see. Let me switch to analog mode here on the left click, so you can kind of see. So you guys all see this, the left click going up and stuff? Everybody seeing my screen? Okay. I hope everybody can see it. Needs to tell me if you don't see it, because I can't switch between them right now. Okay. So, as we said before, the mechanical switch point, I accidentally moved the mechanical switch point setting. You're not going to be able to do that. The mechanical switch point is like somewhere here. But let's say this purple is your mechanical switch point. Let's follow along with the click. So I'm gently pressing, right? I'm gently pressing. We just reached our actuation, right? When we crossed yellow. This yellow one is your actuation that you set. Right now it's at 306 micrometers. You see it's a good bit before the mechanical switch point. And when it reaches, you guys see that there's a new blue line that shows up. I'm sure everybody sees that. So this is kind of, that blue line is Smart Rapid Trigger in a crazy, funny way, but it's doing a lot. So let's talk about what it's doing. So when you click, and you're doing fast clicks, right? Like if I'm one tapping, it looks like this. Bop, 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 bop. This is not calibrated well right now. Should I just calibrate this? Let me calibrate this here really quick. Okay, there we go. So this is clicks. This is one taps, right? It's super fast, and for the most part, you don't see really what's going on. But what's happening when you're one tapping and when you're doing multiple clicks, you aren't actually like doing a click like this. You don't click your mouse with your finger raised and then click it, right? and then, oh, let go of your finger completely and go all the way back down. What's actually happening? You rest your finger on the click, right? And you're tensioned. You're ready to go right back into the next click. So what's actually going on, I'm going to try and do it slowly. When you actually click, like fast one taps repeated times, let's say you're doing one tap shots in CS, or you're building in Fortnite or whatever, you know, you need one tap one guy, you want to one tap the next guy. You're clicking, you're getting to a certain point, maybe not even the full way, and your brain's like, damn, I need a one tap again. You release, and then somewhere here, you know, before you even get all the way back down, you're pressing again. And you're going back, and you're going back and forth really, really, really fast. So what this blue line is kind of like a dynamically changing on press and release smart rapid trigger. And exactly what it's doing, I can't go into everything because it's just going to be too long-winded, but essentially what it's doing is it's saving you latency, not just on the initial click, but on the total cumulative travel on your release and your press back down again, and so on and so forth. Repeat, repeat, repeat. So what it means is your one tap, your ability to one tap 2 times really fast, like bop bop, it goes from what the mechanical physics were and kind of cuts it. It cuts it in half, sometimes more, because now you don't need to, you know, go all the way. How can I say this? It's pretty complicated. So you don't have to go all the way and release back. Like let's say I'm here, right? I'm releasing. As soon as I release behind the switch, so behind, it's hard to do this because I literally have to put my finger ever so gently on this. Then the on press rapid trigger kicks in, which is always way faster than your actuation point. Because why is that? And here's the beauty of it. When you want to click one time, it's easy to get a false click, right? Like if I'm clicking just once and it's too sensitive, oh damn, I'm running around the game and I accidentally actuate. But if you're clicking 2 times simultaneously, right? That second click, you're never going to be able to accidentally actuate too quickly. So the smart rapid trigger system on press is infinitely faster on that second press than that first one ever is. So as soon as you go past your release rapid trigger threshold, to actuate again is our smart rapid trigger system is it between 90 and 100 micrometers. And that's crazy fast. You would be like, oh, damn. So I'm going to just be accidentally shooting? No, it doesn't work like that. Because you got to kind of think about it. If you go to tap twice to do a shot, like bop bop, right? Your finger, the subsequent click can never be accidentally done because the weight of the metal spring has velocity, right? It's pushing your finger up. So imagine the spring is it has a velocity pushing your finger up. For you to counteract that velocity and go back down, you're not going to be able to accidentally do that at a 90 micrometer range. So we found smart rapid trigger is we basically went and we found when your finger and your brain decide to repress on a subsequent click with the weight and velocity of this metal leaf pushing it back up, what is the minimum time that you can do where you're not getting a false subsequent click? And just like the initial the recommended actuation point was at that blue star, smart rapid trigger is also at a built-in kind of fixed point. And this one, you can't change because we found that like it's very, very quick and there's no reason to make it faster. And for basically 99.99999% of people, this smart rapid trigger system is going to essentially figure out when you want to have a subsequent click at the lowest possible analog level, which is about 90 micrometers. So as soon as you go and do that second click, it's basically like you're getting that kind of Neuralink benefit of having it at the highest range on the actuation point, but always on your subsequent click. So when you're one tapping, it feels literally godlike. That's when you start feeling how crazy and how like epic TMR-DS is, because you can do a one tap that you can't do anywhere else. You can do resets that you can't do anywhere else because it's just so insanely fast. Your subsequent click, your double tap, is going to feel like, holy shit, it just read my mind on the second click. It may even feel a little bit out of sync, like, holy shit, like, why is that so much faster? Like, it knew that I was gonna do another click or a third click or a fourth click. But it's always accurate because when you have the weight of the switch pushing up, right, it just gives it way more margin where you can't accidentally go back down. Just imagine somebody pushing up against your finger, right? If somebody's like propelling your finger up, you have to have a lot more purpose and force to go back down. So that subsequent click rapid trigger setting can be much lower because you're not going to accidentally fight the force of that switch leaf propelling up. And that's another kind of beauty with the TMR-DS is that if you had an induction system like Super Strike, they use springs, right? Springs, I don't know if people know how springs work, but they're linear. Their force is linear. So if a spring goes down, it's linearly pushing you back up with its force curve. A metal leaf and a switch is not a linear force curve. It's actually like, quite exponential. It's a very, very fast velocity. So that force pushing your finger above the actuation point is just so fast and so hard that you cannot overcome it again on a subsequent click accidentally. And that's why the smart rapid trigger system is able to go down to 90 micrometers. And that's us actually being a conservative. We were able to get it to like 50 sometimes in some cases and 40 without like really any noise or hysteresis accidentally actuating a subsequent click. But 90 is just so incredibly fast that there's no reason we think to go faster than that. So when you guys turn on TMR-DS, this is the beauty of what you're going to be feeling and finding is that, okay, you're not going to feel that first shot in the heat of the moment being way faster, but all your subsequent shots, like if you have to one tap and you have to like get another headshot off on a guy and micro adjust and get 2 more one taps off to try and find that headshot, or you're building and editing in Fortnite, you're doing it way, way, way faster. Does that make sense? Does everybody get kind of what smart rapid trigger is? Show us in game. Ooh. Soon enough. Soon enough. I will. That'll be the next thing we show. We'll save that for the content. But we have some videos that are coming, and we're going to slow-mo in on some CS shots. And you're going to see, like in CS, if let's say I double one tap on a guy's head, bop, bop, right? I want to move the cursor or the crosshair and put it on another guy's head and do another tap. So bop, 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 right? Move that really fast. All of that now would normally be limited by like how fast your finger is going. Now it's only limited by your mind because you're literally cutting that latency in more than half on all of your subsequent clicks. Do we really think it'll get banned on games? I don't think so, but I've heard like, Epic is sometimes crazy with shit. That's the only thing I'm worried about is kind of Fortnite. Because it truly is way faster. It's the thing that you're going to go in and you're going to be like, holy shit, this is actually giving me a huge competitive advantage to the point that it feels kind of like hacks. Like if just your initial shot, if you're at the recommended blue star, unless you're really paying attention, like you're not going to feel that, 5 millisecond advantage on the clicks or whatever. It's not that game breaking. But when you start tapping and editing and doing subsequent stuff, that's when you're really start feeling the kind of game breaking nature of TMR-DS. So that's the big benefit of it. So when you guys get it and you're trying to see, like, how should I use it? What should I do? I would recommend you go into game, you either leave your main actuation at the recommended one, or maybe adjust it back a little bit, see if you accidentally actuate, if you're like moving around a map or whatever. And then start going in and start one tapping and start like editing and start doing things that require multiple clicks. And then you're gonna feel the beauty of the TMR-DS system kicking into gear with the Smart Rapid Trigger. And Smart Rapid Trigger, it doesn't work in any other analog system. It can, but not anywhere near as accurately. If you have induction, you're not getting to 0.01 millimeter precision, right? Which you don't need that level to do Smart Rapid Trigger, but it helps big time. Because I mean, you saw, like if you are coming back and then you want to go back down at a 90 micrometer on press rapid trigger travel, you can't have any noise, right? Like here, am I still sharing my screen? Like if I'm going down and if I'm going back up, right? And you want to be able to, my browser's like bugging out right now. But anyways, when you try and go back down, if you have any noise in this system, right? Right now it's not noise. This is just my finger shaking because I'm literally holding it over the click. There's actually no noise. The noise is like what you see when I don't have it pressed. That's how little noise there is. Actually, no noise on my left button right now. The right button has like what? Maybe like 10 micrometers of noise, right? Less. And if I calibrate that out, I'm sure it'll go away. But if you don't have that level of precision and noise tolerance, you can't go and hit your release threshold and then go back and hit your on press, your new on press rapid trigger threshold if you're bouncing and noising it and have noise everywhere, which you're going to have in induction. You're going to have it in Hall. There's some Hall sensors that can maybe like reach this level if you really have a good system set up, but you'll be using like 20 times more power anyway, so it's a moot point. But without this system in place, you can never have Smart Rapid Trigger. Just because 90 micrometers of on press requires such good precision and like noise tolerance. And it works in any environment. Metal desk, put some foil, put a magnet next to it. You're not gonna mess up your Smart Rapid Trigger. You're not gonna mess up your actuation. You're not gonna mess up your kind of voltage range. It's very, very consistent. The only thing that could change like, 10 million clicks down the road is maybe your mechanical switch point. But even that we can dynamically adjust. So that's being dynamically calibrated out. So yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I think it's time to just take some questions because I feel like I've been rambling and people probably don't understand what I'm saying. Let's look at what people are saying. Let me stop sharing my screen and just start reading. High level for the layman's terms, your second click, third click, one taps are going to feel insane. But let's see questions. With a CPS test? Yeah, you could do a CPS test and it will show you. But does the mech mode use the BPSD or TMR at the mechanical switch point? The mechanical switch point is the leaf changing contacts. So it's the mechanical throw. Which isn't, it's just normal. It's not BPSD. I'm confused. Does all this work off a mechanical switch? So how does it click quicker if you're still relying on the spring? I feel like I explained that, but um, I guess it's a little hard to. I wish I had some like. We'll have visuals showing how smart rapid trigger works in our official content. If you don't understand now, you'll understand soon enough. Box says, I mean, when you use digital mode instead of analog on X panel, does it actually use the BSPD? Oh, blue shell pink dot switch for the signal or the TMR. It uses the switch. Digital mode means you're using the switch. Oh, I was reading at SPDT this whole time. You're right. I was. Is this tech any better than the HTS Pro's TMR switch? I mean, if you've been paying attention, I think you should know why this is better than trying to build TMR into a switch. Try fitting a magnet the right size and the TMR sensor the right size that you need inside a switch, and even doing any of this. I mean, you're not even seeing into any of the the stuff that you need to do. You're just getting a switch from somebody. How long has this been in the works for? A long time. Not that long, but longer than people think. Any questions that, let's see. Trying to find some good questions. I feel like people, for the most part, you guys followed along, right? Makes sense. Kind of what's going on. All right, good. That's all the purpose of this was. We just got to get a few people to get it. Oh, it's pretty simple set supply. Okay, good. Perfect sync, perfect polling. You don't need to worry about that. It just works. It works well. That's all you need to know. It's not something where it like. I mean, there's a lot going on with perfect polling, but I mean, you guys aren't going to be changing or feeling anything. Other than the much better battery life and latency, but I mean, that's the TMR-DS system is a system that, from a user standpoint, you kind of need to understand. It's not like just a flip it and forget it sort of thing. I mean, you could just put it on the recommended and forget it, but that slider is so tempting that people kind of need to understand what's going on. I don't understand the difference between the smart art raptor and normal raptor set supply. I mean, don't think about the terms. I mean, the smart is just that we're doing a lot of stuff for you. I mean, we could give you all the levers to adjust like the release and on press threshold, but there's more to it than that. Like the release rapid trigger, like we connect it, we attach it to the mechanical switch point. The on press rapid trigger, you know, we've kind of tuned in a certain way. So it's smart just because we've kind of like done a lot of optimizations on release and press and combine the two and kind of like work it in with the mechanical switch point to make it like a very fixed kind of like architecture that works really well. But you will 100% be feeling the benefits of TMR-DS on multiple shots. Like you go and you try and do bop, 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 you know, 2, 3 headshot, 1 taps, you're going to feel it 100%. It doesn't matter what actuation point you're at. You could be on the lowest actuation point because on smart rapid trigger, you're always going to be at like 90 micrometers on that second on press rapid trigger threshold. The actual initial actuation press, unless you have it at the higher levels, you may not feel. I think at the blue star, the recommended one, you feel it Earlier settings, you definitely feel it. If you start going further past the blue star, you start not really on that first click. But yeah, it's all about those subsequent clicks. That's where the game-breaking benefit is. And it really only works with the fact that the beauty of it is it only works with a mechanical switch, because the mechanical switch has a leaf plate instead of a spring. A spring doesn't give you enough return velocity, whereas a leaf plate does. That's a key thing that I don't know if people are understanding or grasping, but like the more return velocity that you have, the lower that can be. I feel like some people are getting it, but imagine it this way. Like if you had a spring in here and a spring was what was determining your return force, that spring is linear, right? So you can only make it so snappy and like have enough return force before you start making the initial force so crazy. Is there something better than a leaf plate for return velocity, I'm guessing is what you're asking, for better stored energy? It's a good question. I haven't thought about that. That's a very good question. I haven't thought about it just because it makes so much sense to just use the leaf plate and the switch, but I don't know. Buckling plates have a lot of stored energy. I can't tell you for sure if it's the best. But it just so happens that's what's used in switches, so it's kind of like a match made in heaven. So yeah, I think that's it. I think most people are kind of get it. Now it's it's going to be trying it out yourself. You're going to have some gremlins that are going to put the actuation point on the lowest setting and then like hold up their mouse or shake it or do some stupid shit like that and be like, oh, look, my mouse is accidentally clicking. I guarantee that's going to happen. Like first 5 minutes. First 5 minutes, somebody's going to get this mouse put on the lowest thing and be like, look, I'm shaking my mouse and whatever. Part of me wanted to like not have those kind of setting actuation points in the red ranges, but I feel like people would have gotten more upset about that. And it's fun to play with it. People put it on 0.1 and complain. I mean, yeah, that's why we put the colors in X panel and a lot of the little info bubbles, because it's going to warn you. It's going to be like, heads up. You decided where the red range? Yeah, we decided. It's just colors signifying that it's a little more dangerous of an area. As soon as it actuates, before you feel the click, it will almost feel like the mouse is actuating as soon as you think about clicking, which sounds kind of insane. Yeah, that's a good point. The slight desync between the mechanical, the tactility, and the thing actually feels good. It feels kind of crazier in a good way. Like if you put the mouse at like the highest setting, like, and you just go and do a single click, if you just rub your finger on a little bit, you're just going to actuate without you feeling it. But if you actually clicked, it's this crazy like Neuralink type feeling. But in a normal game, that slight desync you never feel. If you're at like if you're in the heat of the moment or anything like that. The slight desync also means the in-game shot will line up better with the click feeling. Yeah, that's true, because you have a pipeline of latency through your monitor. So the mechanical does line up a little better with the monitor, which is it's an interesting feeling. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's interesting, and it's not a hindrance in any way. I know when we released this initially, people were like, "Oh, damn, it's going to be out of sync." I mean, come on, like your finger's not feeling that tactility difference, and in any bad way. It's just It's all about when is the actuation happening in the game that you notice. How would you compare it to the Super Strike? I mean, I don't know if you guys saw my video of me clicking the mouse, but I mean, the clicks just, you don't beat the feeling of good mechanical switches. No spring and haptic motor is going to give you that, as much as people will try and say that it can. I mean, it's just, it cannot. You're basically doing a lot. Think about all the compromises you have to make for haptic. You have to add weight, you have to change weight balance, you have to increase power, you have to reduce the precision and sensitivity, like all of these things in the system for only one benefit over our system. And that one benefit is you have the sync better. I'm not even going to say perfect synchronization, because the haptics are not perfectly synced with the analog. It's just a little better of the tactility synchronization. But that one, one thing is not worth the million other things. So that's my thoughts on it. Yeah, I can't wait for you guys to feel just how crispy these switches are feeling like. They're very snappy, very crispy. A lot of that has to do with the hinge too and the new clicks. A lot of inspiration taken from carbon plates in like marathon shoes, where the carbon has a lot of return energy. We initially put like a specific hinge point, like a kind of break in the hinge to try and focus some of that movement in the hinge, but we actually just went to a flat plate and there's so much carbon in it that the return energy is kind of crazy. So it's very snappy. Mizu can attest to that because he actually has the mouse. Very snappy. Feels like gunshots almost, because it's actually a very loud click. I don't know if people are gonna be upset. I don't think gamers care about how loud, but it's like bolt action, like rifle every time you click, because the click has so much return energy with the carbon that it hits up. I don't know if anybody's looked at the internals of some other mice, but some people use like foam. I don't know if people know what I'm talking about, but some people dampen parts of the plastic with foam, so when the click returns, it actually hits on foam. I didn't want to do that because I kind of like that loud poppiness. But we'll see. If people start going, damn, this is kind of crazy loud, we can put some foam or something, but I don't think it's that necessary. Mizu, I hate that shit. Good to know. Yeah, I don't like the foam hurting the return sound. It also just feels weird. So yeah, I also want to know how the PTFE guardrails feel. Yeah, they feel good. Did you guys see the PTFE guardrails in the picture I put up? They're pretty nice. Pain in the ass during installation, but I mean, that's not rocket science. Just operators have to be a little more careful, but it's definitely, I think, the best way. How's a click grinding? I mean, there is no click grinding now because you got two rails of Teflon on both sides, surrounded by Teflon on the main cage. So yeah, I think that's it, guys. It's perfect timing because I got to go in 5 minutes anyways. But if there's any good last second questions, no more creaks, you'll see. What did Mizu tell me when he first got his? Mizu never really gets hyped on shit. But what did you say, Mizu? You're like, this SLX mogs the ULX in terms of build quality, I think you said. Which is funny. Because you used the word.
I did say that.
It's very Zoomer of you. Music gets hyped on everything? Maybe, but not at Finalmouse. I think he's just got the professional side. Maybe he gets hyped outside of this and he's just saying mogging and shit in people's DMs to others. Yeah, that's true. His DMs to others are probably just like emojis and like mogging and bet and for real and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's feeling good. Okay, what's this long question? I know you have a 2-year warranty. Modify the switches. Come on, man. After everything I said, you still want to modify the switches? I don't recommend it. I do not recommend that. Let's go. Okay, that's actually a very good thing to end this whole Colosseum on. This will be the last thing. You modify your switch. What do you do when you do that? One, you are changing the beautiful mechanical switch point that was past factory calibration and our spec and everything, and you're putting some totally new mechanical switch point in that, you know, hopefully Maxime is dynamically calibrating out the mechanical switch point. But I mean, why? I mean, that's just, don't do that. Don't mod the switches. Just don't do it. I can just see a million things going wrong from somebody like a soldering iron in somebody's hands this close to the TMR sensors. I mean, I can already see the RMAs coming in. Dear repair guy, my TMR-DS is no longer working. I'm not sure what happened. Can I get free shipping for an RMA? Thank you. And then we get the mouse and we find out it's had the switches changed, and we see somebody's soldering iron hit the TMR sensors, and the TMR sensors are blown up and all sorts of stuff. So please don't. So anyways, that's it for today's Colosseum. Everybody here kind of has a rough understanding of the TMR-DS. That'll trickle out to other people, hopefully, and we'll release this content for everybody else and all the masses. And now you guys can fight the good fight of making sure accurate information is spread and people know what's going on. And yeah, hopefully everything is good, and hopefully no firmware bugs even on the first released version you guys get. Oh, but quick thing on firmware, when you guys need to update the firmware, the mouse updates wirelessly now. We do over-the-air updates on the firmware, so you don't have to plug in your mouse to update the mouse side firmware. You just hit the mouse and then the dongle, boom, they both get updated. Yes. Good. Wireless firmware updates. We don't update it for you automatically. You just don't have to plug in the mouse anymore. Yeah. All right, cool guys. This was good. Talk to everybody later.